crap every day on his blogs, on all kinds of channels. He's got the High Redbird channel, if I remember correctly. So you guys can go right now on YouTube, see him. He'll give you all kinds of really great videos. Again, free, for you guys to learn from the top professionals in our field. Jack has worked in the zoological industry for how many years?
A few.
He won't reveal any kind of age hints. So more than 2, I'll tell you that. So I want to welcome everybody to Jack Pine with our cheap, quick, and easy foraging toys for the Pressed Parrot parent. And our Good Bird and Super Bird members get to have these toys that he's making given to you. You guys are actually going to make the toys with Jack today. Ta-da! So everybody, please welcome Jack Pine. Woo-hoo! Thank you, everybody.
I thought I was supposed to start at 10:15.
Well, I mean, it's 10:15. Oh, okay, 10:12.
I'm just getting coffee.
Oh, it's okay. You okay? We're okay? I think we're still okay. So Jack, he was getting coffee, and then what I want to ask, what kind of coffee do you drink?
I got the first thing that was on the menu because I'm like, I don't feel like going through the menu.
Can you drink coffee black?
Can I? Yes. Do I? No.
Aha, there you go. So just so you guys know, part of our Northwest roots, sorry, oh, hold on.
Oh.
I just sit next to you. Part of our Northwest roots of the Northwest, right, because this is Northwest roots, is coffee. Where do you think coffee came from? Us here in Seattle. So that's why we have to ask the coffee question, because it's a Northwest roots question, because we're kind of like the guys that created all these crazy baristas and everything that's everywhere. Have you noticed that? Every corner around here pretty much has a barista at it.
Yeah?
It's kind of crazy. Do you have that in Texas?
No.
Exactly. So welcome, Jack, and I think he's ready. And I gave him a couple more minutes.
It's fine.
Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
All right. How are you guys doing? I've been a zookeeper for a while. We're just going to make the environment work for me. There we go. All right, so I figured let's go ahead and just get started. So if you have any questions about who I am, because obviously I am from Houston, Texas, I am a professional animal caretaker. I have been a zookeeper, animal trainer. I've worked with everything from parakeets to elephants, camels, corals. Take your pick. I've probably worked with it. I've also created the High Redbird YouTube channel, which helps with animal care tutorials, training tips, enrichment tutorials. It's basically a project that I started during COVID when I was going lightly insane with nothing to do. And it's just kind of grown from there. But I did want to show you guys, obviously I have been working with animals for quite some time, a variety of animals. So up there we've got some rainbow lorikeets at the Houston Zoo, an Asian water monitor in the lower right, a female eclectus that's actually the namesake of the High Redbird YouTube channel. And then, because I don't like showing off or anything, just a few more other things I've worked with. So giraffe, saddlebill stork, story time for our African penguins is actually one of their favorite forms of enrichment. Me with a Chilean flamingo chick, below that with a critically endangered red-crowned crane chick, next to that with a shoebill stork, and of course playing with an elephant. So worked with quite a few different animals. Now, the entire point of this presentation is going to be animal enrichment. That is going to be the key to all of your goals, whatever those goals may be. One of the things that we are going to need to take a look at, though, is what are your goals? Obviously, someone with a pet parrot versus a breeding pair of parrots versus an animal care facility is going to have different goals for what they're trying to accomplish with their animals. So paying attention to what it is we want to do is going to be how we get to it, but animal enrichment is going to be able to help you on every single aspect of that. Now, a quick definition, and this actually comes from the National Zoo. Enrichment isn't a single object. It's a process aimed at improving an animal's environment. It takes both scientific knowledge and animal behavior into account. Animal care teams make changes to the animal's surroundings to give them more choices and encourage behaviors that are natural to their species. So that's a very, very long statement. Essentially, animal enrichment is anything that causes your animal to think about its environment and the choices it makes. If your animal gets a choice of where it's going to go to eat, what sort of perch it's going to stay on, what toy it's going to get to interact with, having that choice in its environment is proven to be beneficial, provides mental stimulation, and is just all around good husbandry practice. Not all enrichment is good. Like we said, animal enrichment is anything that causes your animal to think about its environment. And even if there's something that you think is good, we've all had that experience where we get a brand new toy. It's usually the most we've ever spent on a toy. We go to put it in the bird's cage and the bird absolutely loses its mind because the toy is terrifying. Meanwhile, the leftover Amazon box that was free, that's leaning against the wall, that falls over next to the cage, that's the best toy in the world. Obviously, we've also seen our birds react to things like if you have windows and have birds of prey fly nearby, or anything that is remotely intimidating, startling, different. I've seen a lot of birds have issues with big hats. So that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Bad things happen in the wild, and the stress that it causes actually helps. You know, if you see predators and your natural inclination is to be wary of the predators, to hide from the predators, you're less likely to get eaten by the predators. So being wary and processing things is a completely natural behavior, but our goal in a captive environment is to generally minimize or desensitize those stressful situations. If your bird has a toy that they are absolutely terrified of when you put it in their cage, you don't turn around and put the exact same toy right in front of that bird every single day. You change something up to make it less scary, less intimidating. So enrichment is basically anything that you are doing to change that animal's environment. So we're going to talk a lot about toys, we'll talk about the cage, but that could also include things like changing your bird's diet, changing the timing and presentation of your bird's diet, changing the lighting cycle, the sound, the placement in a room of a cage. All of those things can fall into this category. Now, one thing that always comes up when we're talking about enrichment is going to be foraging. Foraging is one of the big buzzwords that basically people will say, this is a foraging toy, and I have added $5 to the cost of this toy. Truthfully, any toy can be a foraging toy if you put your mind to it. One of my favorite things I've ever seen was at Parrot Festival, and if you guys don't know about Parrot Festival, we definitely encourage you to join us. It is a 3-day educational conference centered on parrots. It's going to be the last weekend in January, so this year it's going to be January 24th through the 26th. It's in Houston, Texas. Everything is accessible from the hotel to the airport. They've got a shuttle. We really try to make it a really all-encompassing 3-day experience that includes everything. And the reason I push it so much is I'm the festival coordinator of Parrot Festival. So that was my advertisement. But it also is a lot of fun, too. I know we've got a lot of volunteers from Seattle Parrot Expo and Flight Club Foundation that go every single year. And I actually feel like we add a volunteer from Seattle that goes down every year. Maybe like every 2 years? Every 2 years. Okay, okay. Well, the more volunteers you get, the more volunteers we're going to have coming down to visit us at Parrot Festival. But no, Robin Sullivan at Parrot Festival one year did a challenge for everyone the entirety of the conference. It's like, take any toy, and I will talk to you about how it can be a foraging opportunity. So any toy can be a foraging opportunity if you're thinking about it and you put your mind to it. So here I have, if Google will participate, I'm going to hit play. So this is actually one of my favorite videos about enrichment. And I'll have to explain it for it to make as much sense, because right now you're like, what's so exciting about this? This is a blue-fronted Amazon who is casually playing with a toy.
Super.
Oh, so there is audio. It wasn't really important for the video. You may have also noticed it's not in English. So this is a conference that I did for my friend Hilla Niemann in Germany. So a presentation on basic enrichment toys, really similar to the one that you guys are going to see. That blue-fronted Amazon was in its late 30s, and before this video, before that toy that I showed them how to make in the presentation, it had never played with a single toy in its life. So they got the recording of it, they sent it to Hilla. Hilla's like, you have to see this because this bird has never played with anything. And I know it also doesn't look that exciting, but you also got to remember, Amazon, they're not known for being the most energetic and enthusiastically interacting with things. If it was a kike moving that slow, I'd have questions and concerns. But in Amazon, they're usually a little tubby and a little slower anyways. But no, so that was a basic toy. It's actually going to be one of the toys we're going to go over today. And it was a foraging toy. So what is foraging? Foraging is just the process of searching for food or desired goods. In the wild, it's primarily going to be food. That's the main thing you have to work for. It's going to be spread out a lot further. Sometimes it may not seasonally be available. It's a lot more work in the wild to find food. In captivity, we do make it pretty simple. The bulk of your animal's food is probably going to be found in one place in a shiny metal bowl every single day. Adding variety to what your animal has to do to find it, what it has to do to work for it, is going to help it out, but we are going to be limited with what we can do in terms of food. So that's where we start looking at desired goods. If there are particular favored foot toys or things that your bird likes to interact with, sometimes foraging can include actively seeking out those things as well. For a lot of birds, they usually get toys with treats in them that have that shredded crinkle paper. You'll get to the point where the bird will start actively looking for the crinkle paper because it's started to associate it with the food items that it's getting. So the crinkle paper takes on a value all of its own. Yes, and for parrots, it can include searching for food, food as enrichment, toys, other desired items, and birds in the wild spend the majority of their time every single day foraging. They do forage for some other things as well. Things like nesting sites have to be found, and we do get videos of birds that are actively interacting with things that they've created their own enrichment in the wild. When we see fun birds of wild Australian cockatoos like landing on balconies, playing with things, that's great enrichment for them that they were able to find out on their own. When we see the videos of magpies chasing down cyclists who got too close to their nest, that was also enrichment they were able to create on their own. Now, what does foraging accomplish? Because it is going to be a big part of all of the different toys that we're going to be making today. So foraging, first of all, stimulates natural behaviors. It is what birds do most of the time in the wild. So if you are doing what you are built to be doing, what you are used to doing, then you don't have as much time to do problematic things like feather plucking, or if you have a bird that is particularly focused on trying to take apart part of its cage, getting out of its cage. Because I've had a few parrots that for a while there, that was their main goal every single day. Which door can I open? Which food door? Which panel can I take apart? Feather destructive behavior is going to be a really, really big behavior that we look on a lot of different birds, and providing adequate enrichment is a good way to deter that. I do need to start by saying if your bird has a medical issue, if there is a reason that your bird is feather plucking or demonstrating negative behaviors, enrichment won't fix a medical issue. You'll still need to go to a veterinarian, you'll still need to work on getting that addressed, but using enrichment can then help you moving forward. Because I know Cassie Molina, who was here yesterday, was talking a little bit about how with feather plucking, sometimes it's medical, but then it sometimes hits a point where it's just become a behavioral issue, even if you address the medical.
If they're fat, enrichment could help with medical issues, because then they would lose weight.
Yeah, if you have a bird that is overweight, you can actually use enrichment to encourage activity, get them to lose weight, so you can use it to keep your birds healthier. And that's where we get to the idea of a plan, because if your bird is underweight, you're probably going to want to offer additional food items, make those food items a little bit easier to access. Whereas if your bird is overweight, you make it a little harder to get to. Obviously, not the same plan, but a goal in mind that'll get you there. Now, foraging can stimulate a variety of natural activities as well, such as breeding, flight, natural agility. If you are hanging toys from the top of the cage and the bird has to climb and hang upside down to reach them, that's going to be something that it otherwise wouldn't be doing if it was just sitting on a perch. Foraging helps a bird learn what time of year it is. You can increase foraging activities and food items that are available if you're a breeder to simulate natural behaviors of breeding, because birds will usually start breeding when those higher value food items, those higher calorie food items become available. So by making more of those available, you can help increase the breeding in your birds. One of my favorite things though, and this is going to apply to most people who would be here today, if you are a pet owner. Foraging gives the opportunity for birds and owners to develop a positive relationship. You are giving your animal something that it gets to interact with. It provides mental stimulation. It can provide food items. And you will be associated with all of those things. Obviously, getting associated with treats is a great way to relationship with a bird, or to build a relationship with a bird. But getting associated with that mental stimulation as well is going to be one of those things that can help you with that positive relationship. I'm pretty sure most of us have been in that position at work where we have a favored coworker who we get along with. We're just a little bit happier when they are in the office. By making sure that you are using your enrichment items to build this relationship with that bird, you can become that person. You can become their favorite person at work. So how are we going to pick out the parts for our foraging toys? Because there are a ton of different things that are available. There are a ton of different things that you could potentially do. There's often a ton of things that people will tell me they're not able to do. They don't have the skills, they're not crafty enough, and all of that is going to play into the sorts of things that we're going to be making and how you'll be making them for your birds at home. But with picking out foraging toys, the main thing we're going to want to take a look at is safety. Every single day you should be checking that items are safe. If an item is safe when it goes into your bird's cage, that doesn't mean it stays safe. One of the big things that I see for large macaws is they'll get that giant chain full of wooden blocks. And as the birds chew those wooden blocks off of that chain, you get to a point where you have a long piece of chain and just a few blocks, which would provide a weight if the bird was actively playing with it, swinging it around the bird. That toy was completely safe when it went into that cage, but it didn't stay that way. So one of the things that I'm going to ask you guys to do is just, as we're seeing our birds play with toys, just always ask yourself the question, is this toy still safe? What is the worst thing that could happen with this item? You know, it's a safety thing. It doesn't seem as much fun. But if you tell yourself that you need to do that, you're also going to make yourself spend even more time watching your bird interact with toys, have fun in their environment. And for me, that makes it all the more worthwhile. In terms of safe, is the item physically safe? So things like that hanging chain with blocks started off safe, but it isn't anymore. You can get wooden blocks with macaws or cockatoos that they trim and have ready to fight all the vampires in the world. The little stakes that are just hanging on the chain and make it so much fun to reach in. You know, that block started off safe, probably isn't safe now. Is it traumatizing? And a lot of us get birds that have been kept by other people before. They're rehomed birds. We don't necessarily know their entire history. If that bird got an item before that was just shoved in its face or blocked off its cage, it may have opinions about that item. So then if you get a toy that is made out of something like that, like those wooden blocks, your bird may still have an issue of it just being in the presence of their cage. Did you have a question?
Yeah, my bird gets really upset about like plastic spray bottles and like white plastic buckets. And I walk by her with white bucket pretty often. And she'll follow me with it and she'll attack it. And then she'll, even into the other room, and then she'll spend like an hour flipping the handle back and forth. So I'm like, I don't know, like, should I, like, I don't think I'm scaring her, but I don't know.
Yeah,
She'll spend a lot of time doing it. Yeah, that's what I've let her do it, because I'm like,
Yeah, and it could just be that she's playing with it. For any of your birds at home, one of the things you're going to have to do is monitor them. You know how to read your bird's body language. You know how to tell if they're interacting with something they like, they don't like. Even if it's maybe a light, fearful response as you're walking by with the bucket, but if you set it down and they're going up to actively engage with it, that doesn't sound like that bird's afraid of it, and it does seem like something they do want to interact with, but just make sure that it's obviously going to be safe for the bird with things like plastic. If they chew on that, is it going to start to splinter the plastic? If it's a bucket that you're walking around with, is the bucket holding water? Is the bucket holding cleaning chemicals? Those would change whether or not it would be appropriate for the bird to interact with those items. But it's always going to be very case specific. So just use your best judgment. And if we have a goal for what our enrichment is going to look like, what we're trying to accomplish, that means we're going to have the best chance of achieving our goals. So think about what it is you're wanting to do. If you have those breeding birds, are you wanting to encourage activities that get them interested in breeding? If you have a pet bird, are you wanting to find ways for it to enjoy interacting with you? Now, not all toy parts are going to be appropriate for all birds. That's just the way it is. Unfortunately, there are a lot of birds lumped under the category of parrots. When you look at something like a parakeet all the way to a hyacinth macaw, there is nothing between them that is actually that similar. You can't feed them the same food. Not only do the Brazil nuts that the hyacinth macaw eats going to be impossible for the parakeet to open, the Brazil nuts that the hyacinth macaw eats weigh more than the parakeet who would try to open them. The bar spacing for a parakeet cage and a hyacinth macaw is going to be completely different. Parakeet can go right through the bars of a hyacinth cage, and any cage that is built close enough and thin enough for a parakeet, a hyacinth could probably turn into a ball of mesh in a matter of seconds. That's just the way it is with everything for birds. So, not all toy items are going to be appropriate for all birds. Let's just get that out of the way. But we can probably use options. If you see a toy that you really, really like for a parakeet that uses a shoelace and pony beads, neither of those are probably going to work for a green-winged macaw. But if I like the idea of that toy that I saw, I can upscale it by using like a chain or a heavy-duty rope and maybe some smaller wooden blocks. The same idea of the toy, but obviously designed for that animal in mind. Even birds of similar size and species can have vastly different needs for their enrichment items. This is the, okay, if your friend down the road has a bird that jumped off a bridge, would your bird jump off a bridge too? And it's actually not as big a deal for them because most of them can fly. But keeping that in mind, you have to use your best judgment to figure out what is the best items for your parrot. And this can be really different. I have 2 umbrella cockatoos who have greatly different needs for the toys that they get. Now, part of that is because one has a lightly scissored beak. He actually has to go to the vet about every 6 to 8 weeks to keep that trimmed up and in line. And one of my cockatoos is part monster. So making sure that they get the same toys isn't necessarily my biggest concern. Instead, finding toys that they are interested in interacting with is going to be important. But you're going to have to pay attention to the needs of your individual even beyond that. I have had an umbrella cockatoo that absolutely loved playing with pony beads and would take them, would hold them, just turn them around in his mouth, never bit into them, never had any sort of issue. Still something that I would want to supervise because I really don't trust the tiny little bead, but it was something that that bird could have. Now, on the flip side, I had a pair of Quaker parrots who, by every definition, much smaller birds, shouldn't have issues with things like that, would tear pony beads to pieces. So it wasn't safe to give them to the Quakers, the smaller bird that should be fine with it, but it was okay to do it for the umbrella cockatoo, albeit in my case, I would still want that supervision. So pay attention to your individual bird's needs as well. They may be different than that of the species.
Sometimes things change, because I made this basket toy for one of my friends, and it had unicorn beak, and she ordered that toy for a couple of years, and it was fine until one time the cockadoos had to play with the beak and got the beak stuck on the beak.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys could hear that sometimes the needs for your bird can change, and that is completely correct. And that could be for so many different reasons. One, does your bird get bored or tired with something? Something that was like, yay, this is my favorite toy, I want to hold it and I want to throw it, now becomes, no, I want to throw it out the cage. Maybe that's not as appropriate as you would want your bird to interact with it. If you have a bird like my umbrella cockatoo with a scissor beak, sometimes the way that his beak is trimmed can have an impact on how he interacts with different pieces of chain. If your bird had a traumatic experience, if you had a house sitter or something, slightly move the cage, one of the toys swung and, hit the bird, now they might be afraid of all the toys made of that toy part because last time they saw it, it came through the cage and smacked them in the side and they weren't having the most fun with that. So again, that daily observation, paying attention to your bird is going to be one of the most important parts. That observation ensures that the items will be as safe as possible. There's never going to be a 100% guarantee on safety. Even if it's a toy that your bird has had 100 times before, it has gone perfectly fine every single time, there is still a chance that maybe there's a defect in the material. Maybe they were able to get an angle of movement that they otherwise hadn't been able to get. Maybe they just decided, I want to see if I can do this today. That item could still end up being unsafe. So observing your birds helps to make sure that all the things you're offering stays nice and safe. Plus, to me, it's fun. We get tiny little dinosaurs and bring them into our homes and give them the opportunity to interact with us, to play with us. And for me, that is just one of the best things there is. And it's one more way that you guys can interact with your birds, learn a little bit more about them. And for me, that's just so worth it. But err on the side of safety. If you're in doubt about a particular item, I would say don't use it. If there's a particular item that doesn't seem like it's up to the same standard of quality, I've gotten in wooden beads before where I'm like, they have a different smell. I'm not necessarily trusting that this was used with what I know it was used with. Always err on the side of safety. We can get into how much Parrot toys cost, because especially if you're buying them and you come to like an event like this or Parrot Festival or the American Federation of Aviculture Conference where they have a ton of vendors and you spend more money than any sane adult would on Parrot toys. It can get a little bit easy to get caught up in just how much those toys cost. But if you break it down to, okay, this one wooden block on there was 27 cents. What is the cost of your bird? What is the cost of your interaction with that bird? It's not worth doing unsafe items just to save a little bit of money. Your bird is worth so much more than that. Now, items that we're going to be using, they can be found in really, really easy places. They can be found in some weird places. It depends what sort of toys you're making. But dollar stores, grocery stores, big box stores are going to have a lot of different items that you guys can use to make, sorry? Goodwill. Baby toys. I make a lot of reusable toys out of PVC, so I get a lot of the stuff that I make toys out of from the hardware store. So just being aware of what sort of items are around you and checking them over.
Wash your PVC?
Sorry?
You wash the PVC?
If it needs to.
Because I've made these little tunnels and they always come with these stickers with the world's most strongest glue. And you can't put them in the dishwasher and learn the hard way because it will warp it. And it's really a pain in the butt to get those stickers off.
Oh, I put PVC in the dishwasher all the time. You're just making sure you get that strong enough, durable PVC.
The ones I bought, not a lot, but it warped it a little bit. And I'm like, well, people aren't going to pay for this, so I just end up washing them by hand a million times.
Gotcha. But yeah, like there's so many different things that we can use to make our toys. They're going to come from all sorts of places. I do want to point out, especially if you're going to somewhere like a dollar store, pet items don't necessarily have the same level of scrutiny as items that are going to be made for human consumption. So things like the small pet toys. I've seen things that are advertised for birds that I'm like, I swear a parakeet could go up to that bell and just crimp it and pinch it, because I've almost accomplished that just with my mind, with the level of scrutiny I'm giving this toy in the pet store or in the dollar store. So I probably wouldn't use things like that. But again, it depends on your bird. If you know your bird does really well with some things, that can be something that you can do. One of the things that I loved about my female eclectus, and Redbird was her name, if you guys didn't guess that, she loved foraging, but having a variety of different foraging cages and things for a single bird on a zookeeper salary is not easy to do. Redbird was fine with the rubber-coated wire suet feeders, which I could get from the dollar store. She would not go to strip the rubber off of it. She would get the food items out of it and then left it completely alone. For any other bird, and realistically for that bird, it should have been a concern, because potentially ingesting that rubber could have been an impaction hazard. It could have been unsafe, but I did just have one. I was like, let's try it while I'm watching you. No interest in the rubber. So then she got to try it from the outside of her cage, where I could easily pull it off if anything happened, and just building that up. But she was able to use $1.50 suet feeders instead of $30 stainless steel feeding cages. A suet feeder is what's used for birds in the wintertime, where it holds blocks of suet, so it's like a wire cage that just closes. Yeah, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to say I'm starting to forage in my yard for toy material.
Okay.
You know, like looking up woods, and so I haven't really made anything yet, but I've been, my prunings, I save them, like apple is saved, fir and pine.
Okay.
And so I've been like saving up stuff to make toys.
Yeah. No, and all of those things can be toys. One of my favorite forms of enrichment is called browse, and it's just cuttings of edible plants, which you utilize to, is it a visual barrier for your birds? For breeding birds, I can put branches in the cage to make them feel a little more secluded, a little more protected, to encourage them to be more likely breeding. But I could also put in a bunch of branches if I have a bird that is feather plucking, because pulling the leaves off of this branch is hopefully going to satisfy that same part of the brain that wants to pull the feathers out of the bird. So that can be a way that I can get around that. So there are going to be so many different items that you guys can get. Again, with things like browse, with anything that you're going to be giving your bird, just check to make sure that it's safe. Learning to identify the plants so they're non-toxic, making sure they're not treated with things like pesticides or anything like that. But yeah, there's so many options that are available. One thing you do want to be careful with, especially if you're going to somewhere like the dollar store, or especially if you have particular birds, dyes, pigments, and fragrances that can be used on those things could potentially make them unsafe. Fragrances that are added to things, I swear the dollar store loves to cover everything in a tiny sprinkle of glitter that would make things unsafe. Now, I'm also going to point out birds like eclectus parrots have actually been proven to be very, very sensitive to artificial dyes and colors. The usage of artificial dyes and colors has been linked to some feather destructive behavior found in eclectus parrots, and they are one of the most likely parrots to pluck their feathers. This is probably part of the reason why. A lot of birds in captivity have found that by switching over to a pelleted diet that doesn't include any artificial colors, by utilizing toys that are all natural colors, they don't see those same feather plucking issues. There's not that same allergic reaction to those dyes and those colors. And the more we learn about our birds, the more we learn what things are safe and what things aren't. 20 years ago, trying to give your bird, your eclectus, a big toy with a ton of dyed pieces was going to be a way of giving the best possible care to that bird, because you're giving it something huge to interact with. Now we know it's not necessarily the best choice.
You can't have dye in a toy either.
It's one of those things that can be very, very sensitive to. But the field of animal care is always changing. What we're learning is always changing. And it's a little scary to realize just how far we've come in such a short period of time. Because if you go back in books just 30 to 40 years, a seed-only diet was going to be one of the best ways to take care of your bird. We did not have ready access to hand-feeding formula. Instead, you made a formula out of Monkey Crunch biscuits and peanut butter. Birds at the Houston Zoo had dry cat food as a regular part of their diet. And that's just going back to the late 90s. I believe you had a question, and then you.
Do you use colors thinking of the dollar store, they have these icicle sticks out of wood, and they have a scent that is natural and a scent of colors. But do you have experience that the birds gravitate more to colorful things rather than the natural?
What I have found, and this may be controversial, or we can just, I'm open to discussing it. I've actually had many toy owners agree. Birds really like the idea of how they need to interact with a toy. Is it a foraging toy that I'm supposed to pull apart? Is it a shreddable toy? In terms of like the colors and color scheme that goes into a toy, that is primarily for bird owners. And you will see as we're getting into Christmas, you see a lot more toys that are red and green, because you'll see them and think, oh, it's coming up on Christmas, I got to get toys for my bird. Around Valentine's Day, we're seeing red, pink, and white toys. Around Halloween, they're all either black or orange and green and purple. And there's nothing wrong with that. I actually really, really like color scheming for toys because it helps you keep a better idea on how old is that toy? How long has my bird been interacting with that toy? They're like, I hung up this, autumn toy with all these reds, oranges, and yellows, and oh no, it's June. I should probably take that out of there. So there's definitely things that I would say using the colors of the toys can be really, really useful. The different dyes, you're going to have to pay attention to them if you think they're safe or not. Food grade items, especially food grade items for people, are usually going to be a higher quality than just craft sticks.
A customer one time told me that their bird wouldn't chew anything that wasn't dyed.
And I've seen birds where they'll go through a bag of Zupreme and leave just the yellow pieces behind. But no, I do use some pre-dyed items if I believe them to be safe. I do have bird-safe dyes that I can use. I use primarily for doing things like getting a 2x4, cutting it into pieces, drilling it, and then making my own blocks, because it's a very, very inexpensive, though very labor-intensive way to get a lot of chewable, shreddable material for your birds. So you do just want to pay attention to it. Do you have a question?
Just a comment.
Okay.
We talk about dyes, but I do a lot of active gardening and foraging things, and one thing that I really like to do is use a natural dye. So there's a lot of flowers and plants that the birds will eat that also can dye wood,
Mm-hmm.
and leather and stuff like that they love to chew on.
Yeah, there's a ton of different ways to do that. I like to think of it as animal care is basically like a mathematical equation, and we are all trying to get to the same answer. But if our answer that we're trying to get to is 5, my approach there can be 2 plus 2 plus 1 is 5. Your approach could be 2 plus 3 is 5. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 3 is 5. We all take a different route to get there, but we all still hit that point. What you decide to do for your birds should be part of a comprehensive plan for the diet of your birds, the enrichment of your birds, the training of your birds, the medical care. All of it should play into each other, and it should be the plan that works for you. The plan that works for somebody else may be great for somebody else, but maybe that's not going to work with your lifestyle or your birds or your setting. So pay attention to what works for you. Yes?
I say you were not supposed to use food to dye wood because there's a chance of the bird flavoring the wood and the bird eating the wood instead.
So using things with a flavor, yes, that is a potential hazard there of are they chewing and potentially ingesting the wood. That being said, a lot of vegetable dyes aren't a strong flavor, or they're not a desirable flavor. But again, just like with using anything new, if it's something you guys want to use, I would recommend you observe it, do your research. Just try to make sure that it stays nice and safe. Now, from the dollar store, grocery store, we're going to be looking at things like lunch bags, cupcake liners, shredded paper, coffee filters, index cards. We're going to be looking at plastic items. We talked about baby toys. Baby silverware is actually one of my favorite things to use because it's going to be really, really nice and durable. Things like pony beads, those can be found at the dollar store as well. And if you guys need assistance with this, on that Hi Redbird YouTube channel, there's actually a video on picking out particular items from the dollar store or the grocery store. So you'd pretty much have a list of things you could look for.
So is there also some bamboos, like stirring spoons for cooking that you can drill them and hang stuff?
Yeah. Now you do just want to use your best judgment on what is safest for your bird. Be aware of ingestion hazards. Plastic items, if your bird is chewing that apart, swallowing that, they're not going to be able to pass it through their system. That can cause a problem. The reason we avoid flavors on wood blocks is if you are ingesting wood and you're not really built for ingesting wood. It takes a really long time to pass through your system, so that can cause a problem. But who wants to make some toys? Okay, so you guys do have in your pack, these items all came from either the dollar store or Fred Meyer. We got the items to put together 50 packs for $80, and each of these will make multiple toys. This is the use your best judgment aspect. They had plastic pony beads at the dollar store. They had a metallic gold coloring. I did not trust that that was just the plastic. I was concerned there was like a film coating, a paint that would, be an ingestion hazard. Well, somebody had broken open a package of silver pony beads, and they were on the floor. So, like any completely logical person would do, I pick up one of the pony beads off the floor, I put it in my mouth, and I scrape it with my tooth to see if it was safe or if it was unsafe. And yeah, the paint came right off, so that wasn't safe. So don't do that. Don't pick up random beads at the dollar store and chew on them. Off the floor of the dollar store. Hey, I am committed to Parrot safety. I should be committed for Parrot safety. But no, the pony beads actually just came from Fred Meyer. Okay, one of my favorite toys. Who here does not have time first thing in the morning when you're getting ready for work to make a new toy for your bird? Raise your hand if you think you don't have time. Okay, I'm going to show you. Oh, I don't have food. We're going to pretend I have like an almond sliver or something. So what I'm going to do is take a finger trap, push it in together, take our popsicle stick, just slide it through. Where you have that hole where we would string it up, that's where I would then put like an almond or a sunflower seed, like a single food item, push it in, and then take your finger trap and just slide it out. Now that stick is going to be really nicely in there. Any food items you put are going to be really nicely in there. You can actually sit down on the couch and make an entire bag of these while you're watching a movie, but here is a foot toy that I can give my bird before I leave for the day that took 10 seconds to make. So easy toys are going to be a really, really easy option. Now, one of my favorites, because I told you guys about how that was used for that bird in Germany, it's what I call a foraging donut. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a brown paper bag. Now you can use scissors, but I didn't want to buy that many scissors from the dollar store. So I'm just going to lightly tear down the bag. And what we want is this tube. Now, this piece we can use later on if you wanted to give your bird, maybe a little bit of their food in there, close up the top. If we want to use this to fill our foraging donut, All of those are going to be ways that we can utilize that last piece so it's not trash. But all we're going to do is take our foraging little paper tube that we have right here. We're just going to take one side and fold it in on itself so it meets up on the other side. And this can take a little bit of practice. And a really fun thing about this toy, so I make this toy for parrots. I have actually done the same thing with paper inserts for feed bags to create toys for elephants, camels, an absolutely massive Belgian draft horse. So again, using the right items, scaling them for the animal that you're using. If you see a toy that you like for a different size bird, you can think about how to repurpose that for what'll work for your animal. I'm telling you guys right now, there is not a special store of stuff for zookeepers, or at least there wasn't. There actually is starting to be now. But most of the items that zookeepers will use for their bigger animals, it's the same idea for a toy that's used on things like dogs and cats, just upsized in materials and size to be appropriate for that animal. Okay, so we have our, awesome. I don't even know what shape this is. Danny, that seems like something you would randomly know.
Sorry.
Oh, disappointed. Okay.
That camel feeder is on your YouTube channel.
Yes. Yes, both. There's a tutorial on just building this toy, and there is a tutorial on considerations to make when upsizing it. So you see a parrot get it, and then you see a dromedary camel get it. We're also going to use maybe a little bit of our shredded paper, and we're just going to sprinkle that right on the inside. Now, like I was saying, a lot of birds will start to associate things like this shredded paper with foraging toys. When they do, you can use that as a way to sort of draw their attention to different things. If you have new toy parts you want them to interact with. You know they have a great relationship with the crinkle paper. Add the crinkle paper to the new toy parts. They'll be more likely to interact with it. So it's going to depend on the quality of the shredded paper. The good news is at this point, most of the inks that are used on paper are going to be soy-based. They're not toxic. The options that would be toxic are actually much more expensive to get now because the soy-based ink for paper is so readily available. One thing that is a big concern with the crinkle paper, and that's no matter where you get it, there's going to be things like foil. There might be little plastic strips if they make like a Christmas version that's meant to be sparkly. But they'll also make just a plain brown shredded paper as well. So if you're concerned about the dyes, if you got like that Eclectus parrot that might be allergic when other birds aren't, you can still go with that all brown paper as well. Yes?
Easter is the time to buy this stuff. I have a pair of breeding conures. I bought probably 3 pounds of this stuff in plain.
Oh, one thing I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you guys have had parrots for any period of time, you will have things that you start to do that make your other friends think you are insane. So, knowing that you need to go right after Easter and just stock up on all the shredded paper. I don't know if you guys are aware, y'all are in Seattle, I can tell you this because you're not competition for me. The first Monday after Christmas is when Kroger puts all of the whole nuts on sale. The giant things of shelled. I have dragged the display over to the cashier, but like, I need this. And it's enough to get through a year. So the first Monday after Christmas is when they go on sale. Yeah. And they go on sale from like $8 a pound to $1 a bag. The Monday after Christmas, because they do all of their price changes on the Monday, and yeah, it's the setting an alarm. But no, there's going to be things like that that you start to do. You know, if you have a ton of outside natural aviaries, I have seen friends pull over on the side of the road because there is a really nice branch or a piece of fallen grapevine that they want to use. And the grapevine is great because you hang it, it moves a lot more, the birds are going to have better muscle tone. Therefore, these pair of breeding birds who with better muscle tone are going to be more likely to breed. Like, it's all part of a plan. It's all part of providing the best quality care for your birds. But some of your friends might think you're a little bit crazy, and they're not your real friends. If you come to Parrot Festival at the end of January in Houston, you will find a room full of people who think that is completely normal. Okay, so with this, we filled it with shredded paper. I forgot to get treats, so we're going to pretend that there's treats in there as well. Now all we're going to do is we're just going to crimp down the edges. And this can be neat. This can be not neat. You can neatly fold it in on itself, or you can just, crinkle the whole thing down. Now the reason I really like this, depending on the size of the bird, I can give this to a Moluccan cockatoo, a hyacinth macaw. It is just a foot toy. I can hang this from a skewer, from a quick link, from the top of a cage. For a parakeet, this now becomes a small swing that they can lightly tear apart. A lot of people are going to have those perches that just screw into the side of their cages. You can actually take this, just slide it onto that perch so your bird has something to walk up to. They're now trying to figure out how to lift it off the perch. Different ways of thinking about and interacting with a single solitary toy. This right here is that toy that bird interacted with for the first time in his life for 30 years. And the amount of time that goes into this is almost ridiculous. You can buy a giant pack of lunch bags for $1.99. So you can make, 50 to 100 of these. When you're just making them, this can take 20 to 30 seconds. But it can make such a tremendous impact on how your animal is able to live and interact with the world. I work at an animal care facility, and one of my friends just went to a conference. She came back with a slogan that I think is really, really important for anyone who works with animals to think about. And that is that the quality of your work is the quality of their life. So if you're willing to put in that extra 20 to 30 seconds to, I showed up 5 minutes early, I made this extra toy, it makes a world of difference in your bird and how they're able to interact with the world. But again, super, super easy toys. Now we're going to have a variety of different items like the plates, like the coffee filters, like the cupcake liners that somebody got distracted and forgot to drill holes into or put into the bags. I don't know who that was. I'll yell at them later.
I'm so sorry.
It was me. But no, using what is appropriate. But if you think about it, the cupcake liner and the coffee filter are basically variations of size. They're built up from each other, but they're essentially going to work the same way. You're also going to have things like, my bag didn't have cups.
You want a cup?
You want some cups?
Yo, we had plenty of cups. Wait. Did they fall down? Oh, okay. In my defense, you guys noticed I was also getting my coffee right before the session, which means that we were doing the bags before coffee, which was a risk.
That was not a good idea.
Some ideas, sometimes you try things that's like, I don't know if this will work, but maybe it will. And some ideas, no, they don't work. Sure. Oh, no. I am ready for you. So, this right here, I was able to borrow this from someone here in Seattle because I forgot mine. So this is a crocodile. It is a scrapbooking tool. So it lets you measure. It drills different size holes. It also does grommets if you need that. I have one that's a size up. It will actually let you measure how far in an item you need to go to get a consistent measurement, to center them. Sorry? Yeah. But this right here can go through so many different things. The tongue depressors. Like you can see just how quickly it goes through that. It'll go through stacks of paper. So I definitely recommend it. And I think this one right here, if you use the right coupons and stuff, you can get this as a toy making tool for $10.
No, I've never seen it for less than 25.
Okay. Well, the big bite is
Big
like,
one's like 50, but that one I think I've seen on sale for 25. It's only like 30.
I was like, the big bite goes on, I think the big bite's on sale for like 22, because one of the stores around here, because I was looking to see if I needed to buy one. But no.
I just buy it on Amazon.
A crocodile. And if you go to that High Redbird YouTube channel, there is a complete demonstration of the whole thing, because that is the most magical tool that I have in my arsenal. But then even things like a drill, if you have an entire stack of cups, you just go through the length of the drill bit.
Sometimes I use scissors if I feel like
Oh, okay, using scissors. Or like an awl, a screwdriver. All of those can be ways that you accomplish that. So it really just sort of depends on what you're trying to go through, how many. For the paper plates, we did with a drill and just went through. I thought I could go through the whole stack. Danny said I couldn't. I got through 3/4 of the stack, and then the drill bottomed out. So it is recorded for the masses, Danny, in this one particular solo instance. You were maybe a little bit right.
I'll record it.
Oh, okay.
I'll record it on.
Okay. You guys are going to have, it is pieces of cotton yarn in there. The items that were available at the dollar store for stringing toys, some of the ropes, again, they had that really strong odor. I can't trust that they weren't treated with an oil or something that would be unsafe for my birds. But this is going to be 100% cotton. Cotton rope is used for a lot of big parrot toys. Now at this size, we're probably looking at much, much smaller birds. But you guys will be able to get the idea at least. And there was another thought there, but it went away. It'll come back. So all I'm going to do, the easiest way, I've seen so many people struggle with different knots for making parrot toys. Because when you try to make just a single string of something, it's like, okay, what's the particular hitch in the knot that I need? So I'll tell you guys right now, there is nothing wrong with doubling it up and then just doing a basic overhand knot right there. That is going to give you a loop that you can use for your quick link, and now the toy's just going to be twice as full. You could do different parts on it if you wanted, or you could end up cutting part of it, but that's just going to be a really fast, really easy way that's going to work for a lot of different birds. Now on one side, I am going to build a toy for a bird that is shredding. So what I'm going to use is a lot of things that I want that bird to readily destroy. So here I've got things like the index cards. A package of 250 of those was $1. I can use things like the coffee filter, the paper plate if I really, really wanted to, and to give my bird a little bit more room to access all of those items. Instead of stacking everything directly on top of each other, I can use things like the pony beads to just give a little bit more space. If you are working with something like a rope or a twine, one thing that can help you a lot is taking a small piece of Scotch tape, wrapping it around at the tip, so then you can feed it through everything. Just remember to cut it off before you give that to your bird.
if you have that plastic poly rope, I take a lighter and melt it.
I thought I strung the card, but then it fell to the ground, so I didn't. So, if you guys want to make parrot toys like that, just make sure that you're actually putting the toy part on the hanger. I mean, you can try it my way too, but that probably wouldn't work the best. You can also make choices when you guys go to things like bird shows, or if you go to bird stores and find bird toys. Sometimes you'll find bird toys that are meant to be completely taken apart, and sometimes you'll find bird toys that are built on a stainless steel skewer, or Debbie with the parrot pockets, the leather with the openings. That is a reusable toy part that you guys can use. So make those decisions when you go and you buy your big toy items. But yeah, so we'll just do a little bit of that, and then we'll tie that off and pretend that I filled the entire thing. Another thing that can be a struggle for bird owners is knowing how to make a foraging toy. And what you want to remember is you just want to have a cavity and a cover. And that's going to make it really, really easy. On our foraging donut, the paper bag was all in one. It was something to hold the things, but it also covered them up. In this instance here, I can do a index card, and I can do a paper cup. There's no pressure when everyone's watching you. None at all. And we would just repeat this process again and again and again. So maybe you have like 5 cards and 5 cups. Now we're going to have this place where the bird's going to have to either lift the cards, shred them, completely open this up to be able to get to these cups. In that cup, we can put things like the shredded paper, the food items that we were talking about. So there's a lot of different ways that you guys can use even these basic toy parts to make so many different things. So I know we're getting close to the start time for Danny's presentation. Do you guys have any questions?
I have a idea.
Okay.
My green sheet conure, his favorite toy in the whole world is a candy jar lid that I threaded onto a perch.
Okay.
Like, and he loves it.
Yeah. Paying attention to the kinds of things that your birds want to interact with. You know, we don't always want to give them the exact same thing, the thing that we've said that's their favorite thing to get, because then it can get boring. Or then you're only giving them one thing, and they never learn. Maybe there's something they like even more than that one thing they've been getting. But by paying attention to, hey, my bird loves shredding things. My bird loves, problem solving, opening up puzzles. Then you're starting to make the plan for what's going to be in the best interest of your bird. Did I knock anything else down? That wasn't me. All right, do you guys have any other questions? Everyone's now just having fun making toys? And again, if you guys need more ideas, things that you can come up with, on that flyer that you should have gotten when you come in, there's the link to the Hi Redbird YouTube channel. It shows you how to do a bunch of different DIY toys, PVC toys, Parrot stands. So there's a lot of different enrichment that you guys can access there. Yes?
Any final, I have a lazy bones does not forage.
Okay.
And I mean, everything I try, and I just cannot convince him that there's something good inside something else.
Okay.
Any
So, what, is it an Amazon? It's usually an Amazon. Okay. Okay. So just like we were talking about, not overwhelming a bird, desensitizing them to scary things, we can do the same thing with getting them to learn that certain toy parts and toy items are good. So I would start with, we're going to pretend that this is your regular food bowl. I have my diet that I put in there. I'm just going to put some of this crinkle paper right on top. The bird can still very clearly see the diet around it. It expects the food to be in this container, but it's now going to have to maybe dig a little bit to look for it. That's going to be a really good first step, and honestly, for some people, that's as much of a step as they need. But if your bird starts to then associate this paper with all the food items that I got in here, if I now use this on another toy and it sees that paper on that toy, it may be more inclined to investigate it. You can do the same thing with, if you have maybe like wooden discs, do the food bowl, put a wooden disc on top that your bird has to move out of the way. And then when they see that wooden disc on a toy, they'll start to make the connection. Depending on the bird, depending on the effort that you're willing to put into it, depending on the phase of the moon, it feels like, that plan can take anywhere from a few days to a few months. But there's always going to be a way to move forward with something. Just sometimes you have to go back a step further than you even thought you could or that you maybe wanted to. But it's all in the name of getting to your goal.
I spend so much time online, like, ideas.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever seen that, so thank you.
Yeah, and you can do that with that, but you can also do it with things like, coastal hay is readily available for most horses and stuff. It's a natural product. So if you have a bird that you're concerned about dyes or colors or anything like that, use hay to hide their diet instead of, the crinkle paper. All right, well, are we supposed to do something else? Okay, I know Danny's going to be in here in a few minutes. So, thank you guys.
Birdie basics. Oh no, that's you. You're Jack.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
The next one should be Daniel Sigmund.
What's it about?
Was it The History of Breath? It's the avian respiration system and how it evolved and developed.